Good morning and welcome to the Fusionary Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Shivani, and this is the podcast dedicating to recalibrating your health every day. My goal is to help you wake up each day energized by addressing root causes and giving you new approaches to preventive health. The more we know about integrative health, the more empowered we are in building the vibrant health that we want. So today I am so excited to have on my show Arielle. Arielle Leavitt is someone who I met years ago, and we've just been on this journey together, like fellow female entrepreneurs in Boca Raton, Florida, in the health and wellness space, creating our entities and our projects. And it's actually Arielle last year who inspired me to finally take this step and start my podcast. So thank you, Arielle, for coming on the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. This is so good.
Of course. So can you share a little bit about yourself? Because I feel like you wear multiple hats. One hat is your practice that you own and run, and it's a family business. And I'd love you to share kind of the journey of how you got to that. And then I know you now, and I think our community knows you now as The Connector. And you have your own podcast called The Connector, and you're always out there with such love, bringing together small groups of people and interconnecting them for growing their own business and their own lives. So will you just share a little bit about your story so people get you?
Totally. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I started, let's go 11 years ago. I was graduating college, and my father owns he's a chiropractor, and he owns a chiropractic office and physical therapy, and he was going through a bad breakup with his ex-business partner. And they had broken up, but there was, when you find out there's like, oh, there's more money stolen, or this is bad, or like, oh my gosh, that wasn't done, or whatever it may be, it causes a lot of stress. And unfortunately, he had a stroke in 2012. I was going to graduate, and I was just working with him, like helping on the practice at the time. And I just continued on, and I was like, okay, like I know how to like schedule patients. I know how to bill. Like I know how to do the basics. How hard can this really be? Oh, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's a whole other thing. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, just like every day I was like, oh, made it through another day and we're still alive. Like we're still afloat. And then it would be like, oh, we're still afloat and we're outside of like the red and starting to move into the black. Oh, this is kind of fun where this needle is moving. Yeah. And also like at that time, I didn't even know how to bring in business. I didn't know how to do anything. All I knew is like how to just go out and talk to people or like start making connections. And I've learned a lot from other people in this industry. I was very lucky to have a couple of people mentor me a little bit, just take me under their wings and be like, ooh, you're starting off kind of new. Like let me show you kind of what I've done over the past like 30 years. And sure. And I'm like, yes, teach me, like
open to learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to really like absorb and learn from others and others who have done this and are successful and have built their practices. And so I started like, I remember one time, one of my mentors, she, Helen Bartasek, Dr. Helen Bartasek, she's a chiropractor. And she said to me, she sat me down, she's like, you need an elevator pitch. And she goes, here, I learned mine. Let's perfect yours.
Nice.
And she goes, I nail mine. And she did. Oh, she was good in like a crowd. Like I saw her at events and different things. And I was like, wow, she like doesn't mess around. She owns that room.
Sure.
And so she taught me mine. And now to this day, I get compliments on my elevator pitch all the time. Nice. People are like, oh my gosh, like, your stuff. I'm like, it's just, you learn from others and as long as you absorb it and, go on from there, it's really, it really moves you along in life. So
sure.
Yeah, so now 11 years later, we are out of the red and into the black,
nice.
Which feels very good.
Yeah,
you know what? Entrepreneur, yeah.
Yeah, that's a Herculean effort sometimes.
Yeah.
Literally, sometimes I texted someone this morning, I was like, I know I look crazy and like I'm not showing up at the gym and being consistent, but it's a bit of a Herculean effort to move the boulder up the mountain and build something that's in motion, that will stay in motion.
Totally.
And I think people underestimate that. And then they underestimate that we have the rest of our lives to live around this thing,
Yeah, yeah. And it's brought me into so many other places in my life. I've kind of just, I was holding on so tight in the beginning because I was like, micromanaging everything and just like, I can't spend this, I can't do this, I can't do this or whatever. And as I started to let that go and just start being like, I'm just going to enjoy whatever this is. Right. If it ends up only being a business for the next like 3 years or whatever it is, great. Okay. I had a good 3-year run. Now I'm 11 years later and I'm like, released that tension that I was holding and it's like blossomed even more. And I'm like, what? This was even possible?
Yeah.
Which is so nice. And it's hard as you know, as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You want to control things and you want things to go a specific way, but sometimes just enjoying the ride is all that it is. Sure. And then you get to see so much more reward.
Yeah, and it's also attracting the right people. Like I've noticed that in your office, and please share what it does. Yeah, share exactly what it is.
I didn't even say it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like so excited. So chiropractic and physical therapy and occupational therapy is what the 3 specialties are. Everybody asks me like, are you a doctor? And I'm like, no, I am not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor. I own the practice. I run it, manage it, make sure all the patients are happy and make sure that the therapists and doctors are doing what they need to be doing to take care of the patients the best.
Sure.
So, and everybody has like the supplies they need, whatever it may be.
Right. And really, it is a business. I find, and so many doctors have been on this podcast and so many more will be. I, as the owner of Fusionary, my whole job is to get out there and find amazing doctors and show them what Fusionary can do for their patients. And then when they say yes, it's to set that up for them in their office. In your case, it's great that you're not the practitioner because from what I see, the practitioners are suffering. They are the owner. They are the doctor. They are trying to hire and manage their staff. They're managing billing. They're managing all the issues that come with billing. Like it's insane. My husband's in medicine. My entire in-law family's in medicine. And then, of course, I meet hundreds of doctors throughout the year. And I'm like, that's part of why I built the podcast was just to share how epic they are. Because who has time to market a business if you're constantly in the business?
Oh my gosh, it's insane. Doctors have it so hard these days because now you have to market, you have to run their office, you have to even watch over the billing, whatever it is. Like you have to watch over so many different areas. Yes, you have a staff and a team, but they still end up doing all of it. And all they want to do is just practice medicine.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. My husband's like, if I could, I would just operate for free. I wouldn't do any of the rest of this. I would just operate on the people who need it.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is they just want to practice their craft. And instead, the focus is like they have to be a personal brand. They have to do social media. I meet them sometimes and they're like, how do you do it all? I'm like, well, I'm not a full-time doctor. Yeah. You are. I get to just create whatever I want and run around and build it the way I want to. But I'm not seeing patients, 20 patients in the morning, 20 patients in the afternoon, even 40 sometimes based on who they are.
Yeah, it's a lot. You get to actually like support the doctors and just like help them like be able to do what they need to do.
Exactly.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, it's a whole different perspective. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to what you do, what kind of led you to that? Like, what was the breadcrumb journey that made you eventually realize that you're such a powerful connector?
Oh, good question. So I was just, like connecting people and I would, meet people. And then I realized like in my industry, it's hard for me to refer to others because most of the time people come for physical therapy after surgeries or when they get hurt and they need a referral and they come to me. Yeah. So I would always kind of like joke around like I'm the lowest on the totem pole. Kind of. Yeah, right? Uh-huh. It's just, people are not really coming to me first. They want to go see their orthopedist first or their primary care. And then their primary cares are referring to me.
Sure. You're like the sub specialist, like the last in the line.
Exactly. Which is totally fine. But then it's now become because there's so much competition and there's so many different things. People are like, well, how are you going to refer back to me? Or how are you going to like advertise me? Or how are you going to promote me? And it's come to the point where it's just been like, I was like, I can't.
Yeah, I can't.
I'm going to try. And if somebody needs something, I'll be happy to, bring up your name or recommend you or whatever it may be. Yeah. But I can't, it's not going to be like 500 patients a month or something like that, So that's when I really realized I was like, well, but I can try to connect you with other people that might be able to do that. Like, because I started meeting some other people, like maybe a big urgent care center, or I met another person who does a lot of marketing or whatever it may be, or has a complementary profession to that other person.
Sure.
And so then I was like, you guys should just like work together. Like,
Right.
why put this pressure on me when you guys could just work together and bring a lot of business to each other?
Exactly.
And so I started just kind of doing this, and people were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for connecting me with that person.
Yeah.
We have like now have like this whole platform. We do this. I got 15 patients from them, whatever it is. And I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah, I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
Oh, it
and
feels
you're helping
so
others.
good.
And it's not a tit for tat. It's not a, please, like, I have to do this for you to do that. It kind of was born out of the kindness of your heart of just like, hey, like, I've already met all you people and you should connect.
Well, it was so funny, like growing up, my friends would always be like I would always be the friend to like involve everybody together.
Okay.
I'd be like, you know, this friend group needs to be with this friend group and we need to all like hang out. And I'd be constantly like just bringing people together.
Sure.
At a very young age. Mm-hmm. And that's always been my thing of like, let's all do things as a group. Let's gather as a group. Let's get everybody moving. Like, oh my gosh, you guys should be friends. Like you guys would have such a good friendship and stuff like that. And so not like really matchmaking, more of just like friend making, like, or business, you know, professionals becoming friends. Whatever, but it brings me so much joy.
Yeah, but is it kind of matchmaking in the sense that you kind of can stand back and get the 30,000 foot perspective is way too much, but the like 10, 20 feet back and looking at people and saying, you know what, actually y'all are a great matchup. Yeah. You would be a great connection to each other. Yeah. And I've seen you do that because a lot of times it's funny, a lot of what you're talking about, I do, because building Fusionary, I was meeting hundreds of people. And I was like, actually, one time last year, I threw a party and I just gathered all my practitioners in a room and I just started interconnecting them. Yeah. So I was like, if you guys understood how epic you all are, you would refer to each other. Yeah. And then who benefits? The patient and you guys. Like, how simple is this idea? And they were like, why are you doing this? I was like, because it makes me happy. Like, my whole world is health. This is like health and wellness, but live happening in front of me in community.
Totally.
And the thing is, I'm very conscious about people's energies and who they are and their like kind of template. Like, you know who's honest, you know who's not honest. You know who's more into the business side of things and more into the practitioner healing side of things. And so you can kind of put together in your mind who should meet and who's the perfect connection. Mm-hmm. And I've seen you do that. I see because I've seen all the different groups you're creating. You have a women's group. You have a group that gathers, I think, every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
You have your personal group that you gather. So I can kind of see that you pull women together and create community really nicely.
Community is so important, and community is what like also helped me so much. Yeah. And I really want to make sure I give back to that because it's as humans, we need community to survive. Of
course.
And we just thrive in community. Yeah. It's amazing being humans. We rely on each other.
True.
I mean, we really do. There was a study done where they put somebody, you know, grew up with nothing around them or whatever, very rural area.
Sure.
Rural. Yeah. I was like, that's not the right word. Yeah. It didn't come out right. Area. And then another person in a social area. And the person ate, and this is actually a fun thing, the person ate really healthy in the isolated area. Sure. And then in the social environment, ate terribly. Like, let's say McDonald's, like garbage, you know, sorry, McDonald's. Yeah.
Fast food.
Yeah. You know, just ate garbage and then, you know, nothing really healthy and nourishing. And the person who actually was in the thriving community and with around social people and with energy, right? It's like human beings thrived more than the person that actually ate healthy, ate off the farm, ate off the whole thing. Wow. And did not do, you know, just their life was not as vibrant as the person that had the community.
Such a powerful statement.
It's insane.
Because a lot of times in health and wellness, like I'm a health and wellness junkie. I'm obsessed with it. I love biohacking. I love Ayurveda. You name a modality, I'm into all of it. And I've tried all of it on myself. But of course, my inner belief is it is by eating healthy and exercising and honoring sleep and doing the work that we get to be healthy. But I did learn that in 2020, that lesson. I'm more introverted, so I don't need usually to be with people to be fed. But I'm lucky enough that I have a huge family. I have great friends. And I'll never forget 2020, you know, schools closed. All of a sudden we have our kids. We have no idea what's going to happen in life. And my friends and I were like, how about we do that thing we saw online where we meet in a parking lot with our trunks open. And so we won't breathe on each other so we can see each other. And and all of our husbands are in medicine. So all of our exposure during that time was like 50 times higher than any normal people. So we were also avoiding people because we didn't want to get anyone sick.
Of course.
So we met in a Starbucks in Boca in the parking lot. Some of us had our kids in the car. We were like, here's an iPad. We need 20, 30 minutes with our friends. And I'll never forget. It was soul filling.
Yeah.
It was what we needed. And then I had them over a few weeks later and I was like, don't come in my house. You can just walk down the sides. I was like, I'm not a germaphobe anymore. I've resigned myself to what comes will come. But we had like the most epic cheese and wine. I will never have a better time than I did. And I like burst into tears about something. They're like, Shivani, it's going to be okay. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I can keep these kids alive. I don't know if I can keep myself alive. Like, guys, we're in it. And they were like, no, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
community.
It makes sense that
it fills our soul. I mean, yes, we need good, nourishing food, but we also need community, and we also need like all those other factors that come into play.
Yeah. But haven't you seen, like, let's dive into this, because this is that health and wellness topic from you that I didn't realize was what we were going to dive into. I have noticed that post-pandemic, many of us are so used to being in our homes, no loud places, no crowded places, no friction with others. Like sometimes people don't want friction or drama or stress. And so I see a lot of people are like, I'm just not going to make it. I got stuff. And they will cancel, even within my 5-friend group. That's my main friend group. I'm like, you guys, if we're going to we have to make the effort to see each other twice a month at least. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, I know we get busy with our kids. And so can you kind of speak into, if you've seen that, like people I'm sure a group that's like, let's be together. Let's meet at happy hour. Let's meet out and about in restaurants and be out. But I'm also seeing this other group that's more reclusive post-pandemic.
There is, for sure. And I think it gave people an excuse, and like now people are using it as a crutch.
Sure.
And I don't think it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be fulfilling in their soul.
Yeah.
Like it's not
as healthy.
No. And there's other people that are just like, I'm ready to go out and do things, but now there's so many things to do. Yeah. We're back to that like crazy busyness of like, everything's just spinning.
It's true.
And so, but people need it. They're like, and also people are now seeking also community because they had that lack of community from the pandemic. And they're like, I really feel much better when I'm with people or like-minded people. Maybe not just anybody. It has to be like-minded or a small group of friends or a big group, whatever it may be. But people have started to notice that like they really need connection. Yeah. Even the introverts still need it.
We do. We do. We just need it in the right form. And so what I've discovered is I pick and choose now. Like I can't be everywhere and everything. It's too depleting. And I've gotten so focused on my goals, but I also am putting myself into the rooms of the people who are like me. And then that fuels me at a level I didn't even know possible. Like I was just at a conference called CHS, Consumer Health Summit. It was all founders of supplement companies and devices for biohacking and wellness. And I was like, oh my God, I am not crazy. These are my people. They function in their minds at the intensity level I do. They totally obsess about their creation and how they're going to change the world. And I felt so affirmed. I was like, I'm good for years. Like I now feel okay with being crazy inside my mind about my goal because there's so many people like me and I can now message them. They're my friends on Instagram. And so I'm like, wow, this is a new community I'm part of, but it validates me.
Yeah.
And so
and
when you create your groups and your small groups, because I know you've been fostering that, how have you seen that evolve and support women in the ways that you were hoping for?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing what women have done with each other. Like, and I love the support that has come out of this. And I really push, this is like one of my biggest pushes, is that working with women that do the same thing as you, in the same field as you. And a lot of people, real estate agents, I'm just going to use as an example, or even my industry, health, chiropractic, let's say.
Feel like they're competition.
Yes, because it's like, well, I own this area. This is my area. This is my demographic. This is my, and I'm like, great, let's work together. Yeah. And how can you guys work together? How can we work together? Like, so I had somebody on my podcast that she owns a chiropractic office, like literally a mile from my office, anybody would be like, that's my competition. How can I outrun them? Like,
Sure.
let me do whatever I can do. And her and I have the best conversations about strategizing how to make our offices better.
Nice.
And what we need to do and how we need to, and we refer back and forth because there's some services that she does at her office that I don't do at mine.
Sure.
I have no desire to offer spa at mine. She loves spa.
Right.
Like I do physical therapy. She doesn't do physical therapy. So it's great to be able to,
Yeah.
still help each other.
Sure.
But then we also, like, I was having a boss day where it's just like, I call it a business owner day.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my gosh, my head, which I'm sure you've had these days.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my gosh, my head is going to just explode. I can't do this. I'm up to here with everything. I need to vent. I need to just get some stuff off my chest. I need to figure things out.
Yes.
And so I called her up and I was like, can I come over? I can be over there in like 2 minutes. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm having a day too. I was like, let's have a powwow. Let's release this. So we both sat in each other's, like she has this big comfy chair in her office.
Nice.
And I sat in it. I released all my venting I had to do. Then we like switched and she sat it. So we were each other's therapists for but we could really relate to what each other was going through.
Sure.
And it was so special because it's like, not everybody can relate to that.
Sure.
And it's beautiful that we're like now, and that's why I love having community.
Absolutely.
And having people in the same industry is being able to talk to each other.
Yeah. And, there's something also to be said for the same gender because everyone I met at that conference, I wouldn't say everyone, but the majority of the room was men. And so a lot of them were like, yeah, I built my company to 50 million. I sold it. And I was like, okay. And they're like, you're just like us. Just go. And I thought to myself, I was like, you have a wife at home and she happens to be raising those kids. And you have a complete open runway to go headlong towards your goals, travel all over the world and the country. We're a little different. And one of them, when he sat down with me, I explained to him my life and how my husband's in medicine and I have these 2 kids who are 9 and 12. And he goes, respectfully, you're going to have to grow it. You might consider, he wouldn't say have to or should, but he was like, you might want to consider different approaches because you might not want to leave the kids that much. He's like, here's how you do it. You hire industry leaders who are amazing, who can speak on behalf of you as physicians at the conferences for you. You don't have to do it all. And I was like, wow, it's so interesting because when I hang out with the men in my sector, it's a very different perspective. When I hang out with the women in my sector, they're like, yes, we have to combat adrenal fatigue. Of course, we have to stay balanced and healthy. Of course, self comes in the equation of being an entrepreneur. It can't just be headlong working 24/7 travel and we'll handle our bodies later.
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting? That's what I loved when I came to your group. I was like, wow, it's all women. Like we're all in the same boat in terms of what we're trying to do and how we're approaching it.
Yes. Yes. Women have a lot more empathy. Not that men don't.
Sure.
But we're nurturers. Like it's just in our blood.
Yeah.
You go back for years, centuries, decades, whatever. Like all the
True.
Everything to beginning of time.
Sure.
We're just the nurturers. The guys are the hunters. The guys are the go-getters. Like they're just focused on like how can we provide, right?
Exactly.
And now we're stepping into this role of like, wait, we can provide a little bit too. We can do this. But how our approach is just a little bit more softer or gentler but we're still making moves and we're still
Absolutely. And I know everyone gets all on their high horse about men, women, and all the things, and I see all the different perspectives. I do think, though, that we have different approaches. We can certainly get to the same goal. I just think we do it differently,
Women just do it with more community. I mean, like when we, back, let's say, beginning of time or whatever, caveman, if you want to, cave woman, cave time, whatever, women would stay back with the children. Sure. And then the men would go hunt. And we would use each other as resources and helping each other. Or like, oh, you need me to go do that for you? I can do that. We can, And so now that's what we're just doing at a more of a business level. Like we're supporting each other.
Sure.
And the guys support each other, but it's a very different way of how they support each other.
Yeah. It's a different approach.
Yeah.
It definitely is. For me, when I meet female practitioners, we just get it. It's like there's such a connection. Then we immediately dive into like every other topic of life, our spirituality, what we're into, our foods. Like there's so much more breadth in terms of what we can share about, as opposed to with my men, it's like turmeric works. This is the result. Here's the science. They say yes. It's empowered. Empowered is the wrong word, but it's executed in their practice, and it's just done. Yeah. It's so interesting, the mindset differences. Yeah.
And it's all good, and we all need to learn from everybody.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just so important to, because some of my greatest mentors have been guys, right? Sure. Like it's, but it's also just being able to like have that support because we need that. We don't really get that from guys. Guys can't give it to us, and it's okay because they give it to each other. We get it from women, right?
Sure.
And it's wonderful. Then we are able to go off and do what we need to be doing to make changes in the world.
Totally. So I want to dive into a little bit. I know that you have been doing a lot of personal development.
Yes.
And you've been diving into your own health and going to functional medicine and doing all these things. And so I just wanted your perspective on, as an entrepreneur and a female, it doesn't even have to be female entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur who's out there building what you're building and growing what you're growing and doing it so beautifully in this community and in such an expansive way to like bring community together. How do you see your personal journey, your personal evolution, and how have you seen it expand your business's evolution? Because I think sometimes people forget that as an entrepreneur, I think that the reason I'm more successful now than when I built my company 7 years ago is because of who I've become.
Yeah.
All the layers I've peeled back to be a way more open person. And then also my own vibrancy in my health changed. And thus my vibrancy that I can bring to what I do change. So I'm just curious from your perspective.
Oh, no, totally. I mean, it's the biggest self-growth process you will ever go through in your life. Like it is, you learn more about yourself in creating your own business or being an entrepreneur than you ever will do in therapy. I feel like sometimes, I
agree.
It's like so many different aspects that you learn about yourself. And I mean, I'm like, even I've been managing for years, people, my staff.
Sure.
And, but even like I just brought somebody new on and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out a different managing approach for her. Right.
Sure.
But then I'm like, I have to reflect back to me
Right.
because this all comes back to me and how I need to like talk to her and how I need to like, this is not her thing. This is my thing. I'm just not managing correctly. I'm not handling the situation correctly. So let me handle it differently to get a different outcome from her.
Sure.
And so it's just been, but I'm like, I thought I was kind of past this. Wasn't I past this? Like, didn't we?
Am I not just great at my job and it's great?
I mean, 11 years later, you would think, right? Yeah. Like, no, but it's always a self-growth process with owning your own business and all these things. But it's been a whole health journey.
Yeah.
And I'm so into health. I mean, like when we met, right? It's like my mother has always brought me up with like alternative stuff or whatever it may be. And
Nice.
I love it because she's all very big into preventative things. Like, let's be on it before it becomes something.
Yeah.
And and then when we learned about the turmeric and your products, it was just like wonderful to know, right? Like it's like, yes, we have found something that can help us also like keep us healthy with all the stress that we need to go through in our everyday life.
Totally. And that's the thing. As entrepreneurs, I feel like as businesswomen, we're dealing with so much stress on any given day. I'm always like, how much can I pack into my business hours? And then I'm like, well, don't stress yourself out. Like, that's not the point of it. But I actually take the turmeric as like my foundational, like, please just cover me for stress because I know I'm going to do crazy things. Like I'm going to work all day. I'm going to work at a high pace. I'm going to be dealing with things that come at me. But as long as I've got something on board to protect me, then it's okay to keep running at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. You're supporting your body. Because we get depleted. We're constantly thinking of 15 million other things that we want to do.
Yeah.
How do we want to do it? And we get excited, right? Yes. Like we're like, oh my gosh, can we just do this now? And it's like 2:00 in the morning. We're like, okay, well, maybe not now.
Exactly. No, I do. I literally woke up at 6 this morning before my alarm. And then I was like, I have things, because I have so many things on my mind. I started messaging my team. And my husband looks at me. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, my father growing up would wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the game room, which was like his office, the center of the house upstairs. And he would just be writing on notepads. And then he'd take pictures, I guess, and send it to his team, or he'd email it. I don't know what he was doing. But he'd have all of his team. He had a team of 60. Everyone got their instructions and voicemails between 4 and 6 in the morning. They knew when they showed up to work, they knew what to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm messaging my whole team.
I've become my parent.
I was like, I'm adjusting budgets, adjusting staff expectations, moving around job roles, building my social media team because it matters. Like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing what he's doing. But I also loved it. I was like, my 6 to 6:30 was more productive than probably my whole day will be.
And it lights you up.
Yeah.
And that's why we need supplements or things like you have provided for us to keep us energized and going. And healthy so we don't get sick, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so because stress is the number one, I say, just because I've seen it firsthand, like killer, right? Or impairment, because it will impair other things. And if you get sick, then you have to give your body time to rest or recover. And it's like, ugh, that's annoying, right?
It is every time.
But if I just took my turmeric or did my things, I could just be great and we're good, right?
Yeah, and it's a vasodilator. It increases blood flow, which I always think of as like important because based on how we're eating, we're always creating cholesterol and different issues in our own bodies, right?
Totally.
So that moment of stress, because all of us have like a moment, a turning point. For me, I used to take chronic antibiotics through high school. I'd go to India and end up so disastrously sick. And I always thought, you know what, one day I'm going to be so healthy and strong, I will never get sick. Like that was my goal, was just to prevent diabetes and be healthy and strong. So when you saw your father go through this moment of like this time period of extreme stress and then have such an acute catastrophic health issue that then kind of pivoted and turned the whole family trajectory in a way, how did that impact how you look at stress and how you approach your life now?
Yeah. So now I really work on that work-life balance type of thing. And it's so easy to get caught up in like, let's go to the next thing. Let's go. Like, and I have really made sure I carve out time for myself.
Good.
And even more so this year, a friend of mine was like, oop, you're getting busy a little bit. You're not making space. You need to make space for other things to come in. And so I was like, and it's so true. And like, I was feeling a lot more stressed and just pressure and everything. And so I was like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, of course. Like my father had this major stress thing. Like, what am I doing? Yeah. So anytime I catch myself doing that, I'm like, great, good. I'm going to go do something relaxing right now.
Sure.
And it can wait. Yeah. Anything can wait. It's okay. Everything's temporary. So
it's such a nice way to think of it and such a hard way to practice.
I know.
Like, it can wait, really?
And then, and the more you do it's hard. It's really hard. But the more you do it, the more you're like, oh yeah, okay. It's like, it's not a fire. Like, thank God, unless it's like a physical fire, like go take care of it. Sure. But it can wait like 10 minutes or it can wait whatever, an hour, a day until tomorrow. It's okay. And the world will still continue going on. And if it's something that's very urgent that needs to happen, you'll feel that big urge of like, let me just take care of this really quick. Or like just say to the person, like, I'll be addressing this tomorrow or whatever it is. Like, thank you so much. And I'll take care of it.
Sure.
But giving yourself the grace a little bit. And we just don't do it enough.
We don't do it enough.
Especially Americans. We love to work.
Yeah, we do. We get addicted to it. Yeah. Do you also kind of intuitively, like for me, I can intuitively say, you know what? The list will never end. You're going to have this list. Do you really need to do that right now? And my own intuition will be like, no, it's fine. Everything can wait till tomorrow. So kind of tuning in, like you just said, if it's really urgent, you'll get to it. I
mean, I could be at the office until like, anybody could be at the office until like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, whatever it may be. I make sure, and my dad used to do really late hours, and I remember that, and that's something that stuck into me, and then that's when he had the stroke, but he was taking on everything, trying to get everything done, because then obviously the next day there's more problems, there's more things, there's more orders, whatever it is, right? Yeah, and he wants to, get everything kind of done, so then his list is not so long the next day.
Sure.
I noticed myself starting to do that. And I was like at the office until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I still have those days occasionally, but nothing like I was doing before. And I was like, I am making sure I check out no later than like 6:30 or something, or 7 o'clock, if that. And I have to go home and I have to not do work. Sure. And that is like a very hard boundary especially for an entrepreneur.
It's a very hard boundary.
But I make sure I do it. Yeah. If I don't do it, I'm not going to enjoy where I'm at either right now.
Sure.
I'm always going to be like, well, I want this for the future, right? We can always think about the future.
And the problem is social media is part of our business.
Yes.
And so it's hard to shut off, because if you use social media to relax, but you're consuming content, like for me, I'll consume content and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I need to make a video like that. Oh yeah, I need to address that topic. Oh my gosh, this guy is addressing my topic so beautifully. Of course I need to talk about more science. And then I'm like, I'm never checked out, So I love that you set a hard boundary.
Oh yeah. I have always set a hard boundary, and I really stick to it since day one. I mean, I said, there's a couple of days that I'll like cheat here and there.
Sure.
But I would say 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I make sure I have that hard boundary where I shut off.
Amazing.
And maybe it's for a couple hours at night, but it's a couple hours.
Sure. Truly, our workday should end. I mean, if we looked at Italy, Europe, how all these beautiful cultures work, I'm sure Thailand and all the Asian cultures too. In India, I'm surrounded by crazy business people like myself. Like, my family's all into business, so no one ever shut off. We just worked constantly, and dinner conversation was about business. So I can't speak for India and my part of the world, New Delhi. But for the other parts, at least Italy, which is my favorite place on earth, they know how to create those boundaries. And in Ayurveda, I teach that we have to collect peace. We have to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment if we want vibrant health. But that does mean boundaries with our work. So I love that reminder you gave us today.
Yeah. No, it's so important. I hope everybody can just, and now I'm actually carving out nights, because before I would go out and network and do different things, and I'd be like, okay, I'll make sure I'm home by 9 or make sure I'm home by 8 or whatever it is. But then I'm like, I'm home by that time, but then I'm like getting ready for the next day or doing things. And I'm like, I'm not really unwinding.
Yeah.
So now I've deliberately put on my calendar days where I'm home.
Nice.
And I'm not doing anything else. And I'm home at like a reasonable time, like 6 o'clock or something like that. And I get to just enjoy the rest of the evening.
Amazing.
So
where you get to truly unwind and do self-care.
Yeah.
So I have a last question for you, because I feel like we could talk all day long. What are some of your ways to practice self-care and to tune in and to relax and all the things that we've been talking about? Once you create that hard boundary, or on the weekends, like, what is your favorite ways?
Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. I love reality television.
Sure. Yeah.
I just finished Selling Sunset.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, obsessed. Totally obsessed.
I haven't seen that one yet. I used to watch a lot of reality TV in the past. I think my business kind of consumed me, so I haven't.
It's an unwind thing for me. It gets me out of my own space. I love observing people. I love personalities.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with like Enneagram and the 5 elements of Chinese medicine and all these other like and Myers-Briggs, all these personality type things.
Yeah.
And so I know it's like so embarrassing. People are like, reality television?
I watch dramas. Like, I can't even remember all the shows I've watched, but anything that's like a drama that'll just draw you in, or historical fiction shows.
Totally.
The Queen or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm into those things.
It's so...
because it pulls you out of your life and you can just relax.
And then my other thing is night walks. Ooh. I love night walks or evening walks or whatever it is. You know, so like when the sun is setting, or so maybe not like night, but that evening dusk feeling time.
Yes.
It is so beautiful, especially in Florida.
Yes.
Where we get to just walk outside and see this beautiful sunset happening. And that has also been my like, just like, yes, a breath of fresh air at the end, and totally de-stressor and takes me out of everything.
Nice. It's nice to hear someone else say that. No one else talks about that.
Walking?
Yeah.
I love it.
Walking, we normally think of as exercise. And so people are like, I exercise, I work out, I'm doing my steps. But to take it out of that mode and put it into a true self-care mode and say, this is for decompression. This is for tuning in and reconnecting and releasing everything from the day. In 2020, when pandemic started, I literally sat there and I was like, what is the one thing I can do that will keep us healthy and will keep us happy and will not let this thing traumatize us? Yeah. Because it's such a big deal. And I have young kids and I was worried. I was like, I don't want to screw them up for life, and trauma creates disease. And I like know too much about health. And I was like, okay, what is the one thing? And I was like, we must go into nature, because Mother Nature heals all things. I trust her to handle this. And so we built that practice of every evening we go for walks. And it's been so good for us. Like, the kids will kick the soccer ball or play in the park, or they'll walk with me. And I just walk in circles at this park, same park for 3 years now, for 30 to 45 minutes. And all of a sudden the whole day is released. Yeah. Whatever I want to create the next day, I know will be created. And I feel so much better.
Totally.
Yeah. So I love that you do that. Do you listen to podcasts when you walk, or you just walk?
So I actually listen to audiobooks.
Okay.
So that, like, it's so funny because I'm not really a reader.
Yeah.
I'm a listener. And so I can get lost in books, and I love fiction.
Me too.
So I just get lost in a story and I start just, enjoy. And
That's awesome.
It's like one of my favorite moments in time.
Yes. Yeah. It's a way to fill yourself back up, because the day is a busy day. It's a full impact day. For me, I wake up, drop the kids, workout. Okay, shower. Okay, meeting 1, go. And then all of a sudden I used to just crash. And now I'm like, no, pause. Tea time. Transition happily. Be a mom, because they're home now. And then let's all decompress with that evening walk and then ease into a beautiful bedtime.
Totally.
Yeah. Awesome.
And you sleep so much better.
You do. You do. Another health tip for the day from us.
Yeah.
Other than hard boundaries at work, and community is everything.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
This was so nice. It was so nice to get to connect with you and talk to you. I'm so excited that you got to be on here. Everyone, please check out her podcast, The Connector. It's because of Arielle that I'm in this studio and building my own podcast this year. So thank you for that. Love it. And thank you everyone who joined me for this podcast today. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the most potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for pain and inflammation. The website is fusionaryformulas.com, and my website is shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please feel free to subscribe, leave a comment so this can be shared with more people. And this is all I've got for you for the Fusionary Health Podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health today and build your vibrant health today. Ooh. See you again next week, everyone.